بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. طيب الحمد لله, we're back after the holiday session and we're just going to carry on obviously where we left off. So we finished off the first hadith some time back, the hadith of intentions, إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى إلى آخر الحديث, right? So reflecting on that hadith, since it's like a new beginning for us, it's upon us once again to renew our intentions, and this is what the believer is supposed to do every time you do an act of worship. Renew your intention that this is solely for the sake of Allah, right? We're sitting here for Allah's sake and Allah's sake alone. We're here to receive Allah's pleasure and Allah's mercy and inshaAllah the rewards from Allah. And we know the hadith, whosoever strives in the path seeking knowledge, sallAllahu lahu bihi tariqan ila al-Jannah, and Allah makes his path easy towards Jannah. So this is another reason why we're sitting here, to attain Jannah bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, as we are here to learn and to seek knowledge together. And this is, as Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he said one of the reasons that we seek knowledge is raf'ul jahl, is to remove ignorance from ourselves, and then inshaAllah to remove from others as well. So the first thing after fulfilling the command of Allah and the command of the Prophet ﷺ, which is to seek knowledge, talabul ilm fariidatan ala kulli muslim, that seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. So we are also fulfilling that which is wajib upon us. We are here to seek Allah's blessings and His mercy and His happiness, and also we are to remove our ignorance, right? And then bi'idhnillah to benefit others as well. So reflecting on the first hadith, it's upon us to renew our intentions that we are here for the sake of Allah and for no one else. Then we went on, we mentioned the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam. We went through it, it took some time. We discussed Iman, what does it mean to believe in Allah, and the rest of the 6 pillars of Iman. Then we discussed what is Islam, or rather in Hadith Jibreel we focused a lot on the differences between Iman, Islam and Ihsan. We discussed the differences between a Muslim, a Mu'min and a Muhsin, right? And how we should all aspire and increase in our ibadat and our efforts to reach the level of a Mu'min. Because alhamdulillah, all of us here are Muslims, but are we truly mu'mineen? Right? So first of all we need to reach that level, and then to reach the level of a muhsin, right? And we discussed what these things are in detail, alhamdulillah. Eventually we moved on to ihsan, or rather to Islam, and the last session we spoke about, you weren't here. The last session we spoke about hadith number 4, which was that's number 3. Yes, the development in the womb and all of that we spoke about, right? So today we move on to number 5. Hadith number 5 of the Arba'un, or the 40 hadith of Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah. So Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah, he says, عن أم المؤمنين أم عبد الله عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد. رواه البخاري ومسلم. وفي رواية لمسلم من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. Right? That is the text of the hadith as quoted by Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah. The translation is on the authority of the mother of the faithful, or the mother of the believers, Abdullah, or Abdullah, the mother of Abdullah, Aisha radiallahu anha. She said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever introduces anything into this affair of ours that is not from it shall have it rejected. Right? And then he says this is recorded by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. In another narration in Muslim it states, whoever does an act that is not in accord with our matter will have it rejected. Right? This is the narration that's found in Sahih Muslim. So usually I don't go into the tahrij of the hadith, but the last session I remember someone asked me, I think it was Hadeeth, where is this hadith found in? Is there any other books of hadith it was found in? Right, so on the takhrij of this hadith, the first hadith, the wording, it's stated in the wording of the first hadith, it comes in Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah, Ahmad, Ibn Hibban, Ad-Darqutni, Abu Ya'la and others. Right, so the hadith is narrated in, sorry? Basically where the hadith is found. Right, where will you find this hadith? Which books of hadith will you find this hadith? Okay, and as for the second one, when amila amalan, this hadith is stated, was recorded in Muslim, Ahmad, Abu Dawood, Ibn Abi Asim, Al-Bayhaqi, Ad-Darqutni and others. Right, so the hadith is narrated in various kutub of a hadith. Khair. So some general comments on this hadith. The author says that this hadith is one of the foundations of Islam itself. It is like the judge or scale for the external acts performed by mankind, in the same way that the first hadith concerning intention covers the internal aspects of the acts of mankind. Innama al-a'malu bin-niyat is to do with your internal aspects of your ibadah. This hadith concerns the external aspects. Is this hadith or is your actual worship from the acts of Islam or not? Is it from the deen of Allah or not? Right? From the first hadith, one can understand that every act that is not done for the sake of Allah is rejected. Right? When we discuss the importance of the niyyah, when we discuss that. From this hadith, one can also understand that every act that is not done in accordance with the Sharia is also rejected by Allah. Every act that did not form part of the Prophet's religion cannot in reality be considered part of the religion whatsoever. Okay? And so it's based on the first hadith and based on this hadith, this is where we find the two conditions of ibadah. Like Imam Ahmad rahimahullah stated that for an act of worship to be accepted, there is two conditions. Right? Number one is sincerity, that the deed is done solely for the sake of Allah, ikhlas. That's based on the first hadith of إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَىٰ. Based on this hadith, the second condition for your worship is extracted, which is
must be in accordance with Sunnah.
Must be in accordance with the Sunnah, al-mutaba'ah. Right? It must be from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? So these are the two conditions for your worship. So when you do an act of worship, you can now ask yourself, does it fall under these two conditions? Was it solely for the sake of Allah and is in accordance with the Sunnah? If one of the conditions are not fulfilled, فَهُوَ رَدْ, then your act of worship is rejected. Right? So these two conditions is not from the words of the Prophet ﷺ. This is from the ulama. The ulama have said these are the conditions. Likewise, we have conditions of salah. You're not going to find a hadith that says the conditions of salah is 9. The ulama, after the understanding of the Quran and Sunnah, have now come and stated these are the conditions of salah, these are the arkan of salah, these are the wajibat of salah. Right? Likewise with this, after they understood the deen, they came and said, if you want your ibadah to be accepted, these are the two conditions, al-ikhlas and al-mutaba'ah. Okay? Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah, he states that this hadith should be memorized by all Muslims. It is a must in refuting evil practices. And Imam an-Nawawi noted, it is used commonly as an evidence for a number of issues. Right? Basically, any act that's a bid'ah, this hadith is a refutation against it. That's what Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah is alluding to. Imam al-Tufi, he called it one half of the Sharia evidences. One half of your evidences is this hadith. Right? Why? Because evidences are sought to either affirm or deny the permissibility of a specific act. And this hadith is a major premise in that process. So when you're using your dalil is there for two things. It's either to say this thing is legitimate or this thing is illegitimate. So this hadith is generally there to say this is an illegitimate act. Why? مَنْ عَمِلَ عَمَلًا لَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ أَمْرُنَا فَهُوَ رَدٌّ. If your actions is not from the affairs of, or from our actions, the actions of Islam, then this thing is rejected. Understand? Imam al-Shawkani rahimahullah, he points out that one cannot enumerate, because there are so many, all of the rulings that are directly derived from this one hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This hadith is related to the concept of bid'ah or innovations. However, the detailed discussion on this topic comes after hadith number 28, which is the famous hadith of Al-Irbad ibn Sariyah, that of كُلَّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ وَكُلَّ ضَلَالَةٍ فِي النَّارِ. Right? That will come later on in the book. That is where the author then says he's going to go into detail on the concept of bid'ah, what is bid'ah exactly, and all of that. Okay? So, coming back to the hadith, firstly, about the narrator, Aisha bint Abi Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anha, the mother of the faithful, Abdullah. So this is her kunya, right? This is the kunya. What's the kunya of Imam an-Nawawi? The first dars we spoke about kunya, we spoke about Abu Zakaria. Imam an-Nawawi was Abu Zakaria. And we said that the view of Imam an-Nawawi is that to have a kunya is mustahab. It's something which is recommended, it's a sunnah, right? And yet Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah, as we discussed, wasn't married and he didn't have any kids. Yet he was Abu Zakaria. Aisha radiallahu anha, she was married, we know, but she didn't have any kids, which is well known. So how did she become Abdullah? How did she become the mother of Abdullah? Sibling. Basically, she complained, right? She's a woman, she was young, she took it jealous, right? As part of a woman's nature. She came to the Prophet ﷺ one day, she said, all of her friends and this woman, they all have kunyas, because they all have kids. But she doesn't have a child and she also wants a kunya. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said to her, take the kunya of your nephew. And she became Abdullah, right? Which was her sister's son, was Abdullah, and this is how she became Abdullah. So this is also a proof to show us that to have a kunya is something which is encouraged in Islam, right? If you don't have a child, you can still have a kunya. You can still choose any name which you like, any name which you have affiliation, you have this affection towards, any name you feel has a beautiful meaning. If you have a child one day, you would love a child by this name, call yourself that by the kunya, something which is mustahab. That it was the practice of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his Sahaba. Right? So following in these footsteps, we can also take on a kunya. Understand? As we see, which Aisha radiallahu anha done. She was also the daughter of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anha. This is why she is also known as Siddiqah bint Siddiq. Right? The truthful, the daughter of the truthful. Right? She was the most beloved of the Prophet sallAllahu alayhi. We know famous hadith, a person came to the Prophet, he asked him, who's your most beloved to you? He said, Aisha. And then they said, no, from amongst the men. And he didn't say Abu Bakr, he said, her father. Right? And this shows the affection that he had towards her. And he still referred to her to say her father. And then he said Umar and etc. Right? She married the Prophet at a young age and was able to fully mature and develop under his guidance. Hence, she became a great narrator of hadith and a distinguished jurist. She was also very knowledgeable of Arabic history and literature. So she was known as a scholar. She was a scholar of al-Islam, right? And many of the ahadith that have been narrated about the Prophet's personal life was narrated from Aisha and from some of the other wives of the Prophet ﷺ. So after his demise, many of the Sahaba would come and ask her, what's the ruling on this? What's the ruling on this? Because she was known to be so knowledgeable, radiallahu anha. As for her marriage, then we know that she married him at a young age, right? At the age of 6. And at the age of 9, the marriage was then consummated, right? So, just to clarify a doubt, there's some people who use this against Islam, right? To say that the Prophet ﷺ, was a pervert, he was a pedophile, etc., right? Without even going into detail, what's the greatest refutation on this? The greatest way to answer this doubt that the kuffar use against the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is that in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, his greatest enemies was alive. Right? They caused him physical harm, emotional harm, all types of harm. Even with regards to Aisha, the munafiqeen were there to slander her. Right? At the moment they had the chance, they slandered her. So his enemies was there. Right? In his face. But yet not one of them used this against him. Not one of his enemies used his marriage to Aisha against him. What does this tell us? This was the custom of the Arabs of the time. To marry young. To marry the woman at a young age. This was normal at the time. To us it may feel something strange because we don't see it in our societies, right? But in that time it was completely normal. So none of his enemies even use this against him. So this is the biggest refutation against anyone who uses this, is to show that his greatest enemies saw this as normal. It's because you're coming so many centuries later that it seems abnormal, but in reality it was something normal in the time. Understand? So he was not a pedophile, but this was something that was part of the urf and the custom. Also the woman was obviously different in that time as well. طيب. She married the Prophet ﷺ in the 2nd year of the Hijrah, and the number of ahadith attributed to her reaches about 2,210. That's she narrated from the Prophet ﷺ, 2,210 that she narrated radiyallahu anha. Right? Then Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah, he says, an al-mu'mineen, from the mother of the believers, the mother of the faithful. Right? And this we know is a term that's used for all of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because Allah says in the Quran, an-nabiyyu awla bil mu'minina min anfusihim wa azwajuhu ummahatuhum. Wa azwajuhu ummahatuhum. Right? The Prophet is closer to the believers than their own selves, and his wives are their mothers, meaning their believers' mothers. Right? So likewise, Imam al-Sa'di rahimahullah has a beautiful tafsir on this ayah, and he says that this verse shows how the relationship should be between the believers and the Prophet and his wives sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is closer to the true believers than their own souls. If there's a conflict in interest between one's wants or aspirations and what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, then what the Prophet says takes precedence. Right? And we discussed this numerous times. Right? When there's a hadith and there's your desires, you follow the hadith. When there's your aql saying one thing and the hadith says another thing, you follow the hadith. Whether it makes sense to you or not, your aql will always come behind the naql, or your naql will always precede the aql. The naql meaning, I explained it, the text of the Quran and Sunnah. That always takes precedence over your logic, right? And this is part of loving the Prophet ﷺ and part of respecting the Prophet ﷺ, that you put his words before your intellect, before your understanding, and before your desires, right? So likewise, one must similarly show respect and courtesy to the Prophet's wives as one would show to one's own mother. Furthermore, it is not allowed for anyone to marry any of the Prophet's wives after his death. Right? So this is known. If the Prophet passes away and his wife remains, it is haram for anyone else to marry her. Right? And this was the same in the case of Aisha radiallahu anha, who lived for some time after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, but was not allowed for anyone to marry her. Right? So we know that we have people like the Shia, the Rafidah, who hate Aisha radiallahu anha. Right? They hate Aisha radiallahu anha, and they fabricated a hadith on this topic, on this issue of marrying the one of the wives of the Prophet. Right? So because of their hatred, they fabricated a hadith to sort of show that after the Prophet's death, Aisha was astray and she went astray. Right? So one of the hadith they say is that the Prophet ﷺ, he told Ali that he has the right to divorce for the Prophet any of the wives of the Prophet after his death if they behave in an uncommon fashion. So if Ali radiallahu anhu sees that these women after the death of the Prophet ﷺ is, that they've gone astray or they behave badly, then he can divorce them from him. So Ali can make the divorce. So he says, then they say that Ali divorced her from the Prophet and she was astray. All of this is fabrications that the Shia use. These ahadith have no la asla laha, like the ulama say that there is no basis for these statements in these ahadith. But this just shows that they would fabricate ahadith against the companions, against the mothers of the believers, to push their agendas, right? So coming to the text of the hadith, the text says, "Man ahdatha fi amrina hada ma laysa minhu fahuwa." So the word that's used is man ahdatha, whosoever introduces. Right? Ahdatha means this word implies anything new, created, or not previously established or practiced. Something which is new, it's created, or it's something which was not previously practiced or established. Right? This is what the word ahdatha basically refers to. Right? Or it means to innovate or to introduce. Okay? And we know that the religion of Islam is complete It is al-yawma akmaltu lakum, as Allah has revealed in the Quran, al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-islam deena. That Allah says that on this day I have completed for you this religion. Wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati, and I have perfected my favor upon you. Wa raditu lakum al-islam deena, and I am pleased with al-Islam as a religion for you. Right? So this is obviously the way the concept of bid'ah comes in. If something is perfect, then you cannot add anything to it. So Allah says this deen is complete and perfect, so therefore introducing it, something else into the deen, logically it also makes no sense, right? So man ahdatha, we understand what this means? Man ahdatha, right? Right? So he says man ahdatha fi amrina, whosoever innovates or whosoever introduces fi amrina, into this affair of ours, into this matter of ours. The word here is used amr, fi amrina, into our amr, into our affair or into our matter, right? And this matter of ours is in reference to the religion of Islam, right? Fi amrina bima'ana fi dinina, whosoever introduces something into this religion of ours. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ referred to it as an amr or matter to demonstrate that this religion is the affair of the Muslims. It is the thing that is of concern to them, and it is the thing that they are busy with. All of the Muslims' deeds and actions are concerned with and related to this matter, which is the religion of Islam. Right? So when he says this matter, meaning because this is the most important matter to the believers, to the Muslims. Right? So man ahdatha fi amrina, whosoever innovates into this matter of ours or into this deen of ours. Right? Imam Shawkani rahimahullah, he points out and he says what is meant by matter is the way of life and beliefs that were being followed by the Prophet sallAllahu alayhi and his companions. That is the matter by which all later acts are to be judged. If an act is not consistent with the way of the Prophet and his companions, then it is one of those introduced matters that is rejected. So Imam Shawkani says, Man ahdatha fi amrina, yani into this deen of ours means the way of the Prophet ﷺ and his Sahaba. So if a practice is from their practices, then it's from the practices of al-Islam. If it is not from their practices, then it's not from the practices of al-Islam. It's worldy, it's clear? Right. Then the hadith says, Man ahdatha fi amrina hadha. Right? So in English you don't really pick up this benefit. Man ahdatha fi amrina hadha. How do we translate it? Whosoever introduces into this affair of ours. But that hadha doesn't come out in English. The translation, it doesn't actually benefit you. Right? But if you look at the Arabic, there's an ismul ishara, hadha, which comes after the thing it's actually pointing out. Right? So hadha here, which means this. Hadha means this. So the hadith literally would mean whosoever introduces into this affair of ours, this affair of ours. Right? So the word hadha, there's actually no need for it technically speaking. Do you understand? That's why in the English it doesn't really come out. But in Arabic, once you see it there, you know there must be a benefit from it. There must be a reason that the Prophet ﷺ used that word. Right? Because he didn't use any word out of place. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay? So in Arabic, what's the significance? Why is it hadha there again? Right? That hadha comes there. Why? To emphasize or to give importance to the matter that is being referred to. Right? So it's there, the tawheed. Right? To emphasize it. Man ahdatha fi amrina hadha. This affair. To highlight the fact that what are we talking about? We're talking about the deen of Allah. Right? We're talking about the deen of Allah, that which is of utmost importance. Salam. Right, and this is known in the Arabic language. For example, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. ذَلِكَ means that. But why not say هذا الكتاب? This book. That, why that? Because of emphasis. That book, right? Emphasizing the importance of the book. Again, man ahdatha fi amrina, hada is to emphasize what's being spoken about, which is the deen of Allah. To emphasize the seriousness of the deen of Allah and the importance of the deen of Allah. So from this, we can extract another benefit, which is when we speak of bid'ah, we speak about the deen. not the dunya. Right? So there's a shubha that some people have, a doubt and a confusion, where people make a claim and say, there's no way in the Sharia which says that bid'ah is referring to the deen and not the dunya. Understand? This is what some people say. No way does it say bid'ah into the deen. Understand? Because kulla bid'atin dalala, that could be deen and dunya. Right? So that means Rabi cause also bid'ah. Because the hadith just says all bid'ah. So it's most general. But this hadith here is being very specific. Man ahdatha fi amrina hada. Whosoever introduces a matter into this affair of ours, this specific affair. So this here, يعني يفرق بين الدين والدنيا. This really shows us that when we speak of innovations, we speak about innovations into the deen. So if someone asks you, what's the proof that we're only talking about the deen? This hadith is the proof. Man ahdatha fi amrina. That an innovation into this deen is what the Prophet ﷺ dispraised, and not into the dunya, as that is basically by ijma' of all scholars, is something which is completely permissible. Okay, so whoever introduces anything into this deen of ours, ma laysa minhu, that which is not from it. If you introduce something which is not from the deen, what's meant by this is any opinion or view that is not found in the Quran or Sunnah, or that is not derived from the Quran and Sunnah, either directly or indirectly, has no place in Islam. Right? Any view or opinion that is not from, or that's not derived from the Quran or Sunnah, that's what is meant. It's not from al-Islam. Understand? فَهُوَ رَدْ. And that action is rejected. Mardud. That action is rejected. Which means, this person, if you do an act of innovation, it is rad, it is mardud, which means there is no reward and it's not accepted. Mardud means not accepted. If something is not accepted, there is no reward. Right? In other words, you are wasting your time. Right? So you can sit and do an act of worship for 10 hours. But if it's an innovation, it's mardud, which means it's not accepted by Allah and there is no reward for it. Which means you are wasting your time. Right? In other words, you're basically exhausting yourself in something which has no benefit to it. That is the words of the Prophet Muhammad sallAllahu alayhi wa sallam. Right? Ibn Hajar al-Haytami, who was a Shafi'i scholar, rahimahullah, he points out that the act will be rejected if it has not been sanctioned in totality by the Sharia, or if it is missing an essential characteristic that the Sharia requires. Right? Basically, if it's not being sanctioned by the Sharia, means there is no dalil for it. There is no Quranic ayah, there is no hadith, there is no speech of a Sahabi regarding it, then this action is rejected. Right? And the author gives an example. He says, worshipping Allah by intentionally standing in the sun as a means for reward is not sanctioned by the Sharia. So it doesn't mean if you stand in the sun and you seek reward because I'm standing in the sun, I want Allah reward me because I'm standing in the sun, I'm suffering for your sake. This says no dalil in the Quran or Sunnah, so therefore it's not dude, you are wasting your time, you are exhausting yourself, there is no reward for that. Understand? And to me the perfect example that fits this in our times is the Mawlid. Would be the Mawlid, right? Man ahdatha fi amina, whoever innovates something into this deen of ours, that which is not from it, then that action is rejected. So if you look at the Mawlid, was it done in the time of the Prophet ﷺ? Is it found in the Quran? Is it found in the Sunnah? Did the Sahaba do it? The Tabi'in, Atba'u Tabi'in, 4 Imams, the Imams of Hadeeth, Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi. There is no trace of the Mawlid at all in the history of Islam until the 5th century. Until the 5th century, who was the first person to do the Mawlid? Was the Shia. Was the Shia king Muzaffar. Right? One of the kings of the Shia, the Fatimid regime, there was a king by the name of Muzaffar. He was the first person to say, if the Christians are celebrating the birthday of Jesus, we must celebrate the birth of Muhammad, and this is how the Mawlid got innovated into the deen. Like I say, if you look at the wording, the Mawlid fits this wording perfectly. Innovated into the deen, that which is not from it. And this action is rejected. Mardud, it's not accepted, and there's no reward for it, abadan, right? And this is not our words, not the word of a scholar, these are the words of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Right? Any questions on the first hadith?
What about Dawood saying would be
That's coming in hadith 28. Right? That's coming in hadith 28. But I would say that there is also a bid'ah. That claim is a bid'ah because you need dalil for the claim. So anyways, then the next hadith says, the narration in Sahih Muslim says, Man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa rad. Whoever does an act that is not in accord with our matter will have it rejected. Okay? So is there a difference between these two ahadith? Right? There's a great difference between the two ahadith. The wording of the ahadith are different. Right? So for example, Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah, he says that some people, they follow a deed that's not found in the Quran and Sunnah. Right? So they're doing an act that's not part of the deen. Right? But this person will argue that he wasn't the one who started this deed. He wasn't the one who started the mawlid. He found the mawlid part of the deen. Understand? So he did. So the hadith, the first hadith is Man ahdatha. Whosoever innovates the deed, then that action is rejected. So some people will come and say, but we didn't innovate this deed. We found it part of the deed. Part of the deen, you see? So that first hadith, we don't accept it. It's there. It's there, we accept it, but it doesn't apply to us. Because we weren't the ones who innovated this deed into the deen of Allah. Right? But this one, this narration, refutes that again. Because this one says, whoever does an act that's not in accordance with our actions will have it rejected. You understand the difference? So, whether you innovated it, or whether you're following someone else who innovated it, it's not from the deen of Islam. So if you're doing that action, it's rejected. Do we understand the difference between the two? Now,
what do you say to a person if he tells you that the mawlid, if you term it now the mawlid, right, itself is not part of fi amrina hada, like, but the constituents of the mawlid itself, like the acts that they do within the mawlid, is of the sunnah, like the Quran, durus of Rasulullah, the seerah, like things like that. What do you say to a person that says that?
Can I ask that later on?
Okay.
Yeah? But yeah, important to understand the difference between these two, right? So, like I was saying now, if you look at the wording of the first hadith, it says Man ahdatha fi amrina. So some people will tell you, but I did not innovate anything. I wasn't the one who started this action, so it's fine. So the hadith doesn't apply to me. So the hadith says Man ahdatha. Whoever introduces it, your action is rejected. But we didn't introduce it, we just following. So the hadith doesn't apply to us. So Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah, he mentions this and he says, this is why the second hadith is so valuable. Because the second hadith refutes this person and this ideology. Because the second hadith says, Man amila amalan. Whoever does an action that's not in accordance with our affair, the deen of Allah, then that action is rejected. So whether you innovated it, or whether you're following someone else who innovated it 500 years ago, you still fall under the second hadith, because you are doing an action that's not from the actions of Islam, so therefore it is rejected. So we see that there is a valuable difference between the two, right? So Islam is about following and not innovating. That's what Islam is. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu says, ittabi'u wa la tabtadi'u fa innakum qad kufitu. He says, follow ittabi'u wa la tabtadi'u, and don't innovate. Why? Fa innakum qad kufitu. Because verily you have been sufficed. That which you have is sufficient for you. Right? And this is the reality. If we look at the deen of Allah, it's vast. We look at the Quran and the Sunnah. Are we implementing everything that's in the Quran and Sunnah? I don't think any one of us can lay claim to this, that I follow all of the Sunnah. Right? So if you have so much of the Sunnah that you still have to implement, then why would you then go to that which is not even part of the deen of Allah? Right? You have been sufficed, so follow and don't innovate. Basic, clear advice of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. Right? The Sahabi, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. Right? So we know that there are many paths that one could follow. But in reality, there's only one one true path. Allah says in the Quran, وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا فَاتَّبِعُوهُ. So this, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is my clear path, right? Verily, this is my straight path. فَاتَّبِعُوهُ. So follow it. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ. And don't follow all the other paths. It's going to take you away from my path. عن سبيلي, right? ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. This, yes, He has ordained for you that you may become pious. So, صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا. This is my path, which is mustaqiman. It's the correct path. Which means it's one path. The Sunnah is not 10 different ways. The Sunnah is one path, right? As for all the other paths that takes you away, that is misguidance, right? And we know there's a famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he drew a line in the sand, right? And he said, this is my path. This is my path. And then he drew small little lines coming off of the path, and he said, these are basically the paths of misguidance, and he said that there's a devil at the head of each path that's calling towards it. Meaning that there is someone that's giving you da'wah, that's there to give you da'wah, to take you away from the straight path, right? And naturally we understand that this is something which is not always clear to people, right? Because if it was clear that that is misguidance, then or maybe not clear, I think the path is clear, right? But meaning you need to be wary of these other paths, because it can misguide you, which means there are people on the sides that will use the Quran and Sunnah to misguide you, because in reality, that's the reality, right? That this is how you become misguided. People will use things to take you away from the path of righteousness, okay? And as for the path which is the right path, we know in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he was asked, what is the saved group, the saved sect, the saved path? And he said, it is that which I am upon, that which myself and my companions are upon on this day. Which means it's the way of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba. Right? And this is basically what we refer to as the way of the Salaf. Understand? The way of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, and all those who followed them in righteousness. Khair. So we have two types of actions in Islam. Two types of actions, which is your ibadat and your mu'amalat. Your ibadat and your mu'amalat. Your ibadat meaning the rites of worship, the acts of worship that you do for the sake of Allah, that brings you closeness to Allah. And then you have your mu'amalat, which is your worldly transactions and your dealings, right? So the ulama have obviously distinguished between the two types, okay? And these are the deeds, meaning the ibadat are the deeds that are done solely for the purpose of worshipping Allah and getting closer to Him. Allah is the only one who knows how He is to be worshipped, right? And this is a very important point. So the Anbiya understood this as well. Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, Khalilullah. What did he say? When he was supposed to go and perform the Hajj and do all these things, what did he say to Allah? He didn't just go and do it as he pleased. He said, وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا. وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا. And he tells Allah, show us our manasik. Show us how to worship you. Show us, meaning Allah knows He is the one that must be worshipped, and He knows how He's supposed to be worshipped. So you cannot worship Allah in any way. You cannot worship Allah in a way that suits you, suits your desires, right? So for us, our Sharia is established. We have Allah who is the Ma'bud. He has decreed what must be done to worship Him, and He has sent us Muhammad ﷺ as a guide and as a role model. Uswatun hasana, right? As a role model, so that we learn how to worship Allah, right? So we don't worship Muhammad ﷺ, rather He's there to show us how to worship Allah. And this is where the Sunnah obviously comes in, right? And the other types obviously are your worldly transactions and dealings. In general, these acts involves others and are usually done with a certain worldly purpose in mind. For example, to meet some need. Here the interest of humans is taken into consideration. There is much more leeway in these acts. However, at the same time, they must still be within the guidelines that have been laid down by the Sharia. Khair. Right? So for these two categories, each one has its principles. Right? Each one has its principles. With ibadat, we already said the conditions of worship is ikhlas and al-mutaba'ah. With that in mind, we also have qawa'id. Right? We have principles which govern your worship, right? And which govern your mu'amalat. So the principle with regards to worship is al-aslu fil ibadah is Al-aslu fil ibadah, the asl, the general principle with regards to your worship is, with regards not your worship, all worship is, it's haram. Right? All worship is haram until it is proven to be legislated. Right? So every act of worship is an innovation until you have a proof to say that no, this is legislated. You with me? And with regards to your mu'amalat, the qa'idah flips around the other way. So everything besides worship is ibaha. Al-aslu fil ashya al-ibaha. Everything besides worship is halal until it's proven to be haram. If you understand these two principles, you will understand a great deal. I promise you will understand a great deal. Right? I've seen fatwa where ulama make mistakes in this. Right? Justifying certain innovations, and they use this principle to say everything is halal. Because people they chuck innovation into al-asl fil ashya. So they say everything is permissible until it's proven to be haram. So therefore I can stand in the sun and bask, and that's my worship. Because where does it say in the Quran you can't do it? So one of the things people use, where does it say in the Quran and Sunnah, Mawlid is haram? You won't find a text saying Mawlid is haram. You won't find it. Right? So you have to understand the principles here. The principle is al-aslu fil ibadah al-mana'. That all worship is forbidden until it's proven to be legislated. Till it's proven to be part of the deen, then it becomes halal. Right? So again, someone may ask, yeah, but that's just principles that ulama established. Because again, these words that I'm uttering here is not hadith. This comes from scholars. Right? They have extracted these principles from the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay? So, and I think it's important that you understand the dalil behind it. So if you know the dalils for each qa'idah, you will understand why the scholars said these things. You understand? So, what's the dalil? For the first one, let's think the first one, that all ibadah is not allowed until it's proven to be allowed. You should know one dalil for it. Not necessarily kulla bidatun dalala. You could use it, I guess. Al-yawma akmaltu. Perhaps you can get a more explicit proof than those two. Think relevantly. Man ahdatha fi amrina is the proof for it. Man amila amalan laysa, that's the proof. Whoever does an action is not from Islam is rejected. Which means all your worship is rejected until it's proven to be legislated. This here is a sarih dalil. It is a clear-cut proof for the qa'idah that the ulama say, al-aslu fil ibadah al-man. All worship is not allowed until it is proven to be allowed. Based on these two ahadith. Sarih dalil. Clear-cut proof. Understand? Ayah of the Quran. Allah says in the Quran, أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاء شَرَعُوا لَهُمْ مِنَ الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَأْذَنْ بِهِ اللَّهُ. Right? Allah says in the Quran, do they have any partners? أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاء. Do they have any partners with Allah? شَرَعُوا لَهُمْ مِنَ الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَأْذَنْ بِهِ اللَّهُ. Subhanallah. Do they have any partners with Allah who have instituted for them a religion which Allah has not allowed? Do you understand this dalil? Do you understand the dalil? Do they have any? Take an innovator for example. Someone comes with an innovation, apply this ayah to him. Does he have any partner with Allah who has legislated for him a religion which Allah hasn't permitted? This is what the ayah is saying. أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاء شَرَعُوا لَهُمْ. Made it part of the Sharia. Right? مِنَ الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَأْذَنْ بِهِ اللَّهُ. Does he have someone else besides Allah who made this thing a part of the deen besides Allah, which Allah hasn't permitted him to do? This is what the ayah is saying. You understand? So based on this ayah, again, where did you come with? It's a question, أَمْ لَهُمْ. Do they have partners besides Allah? Right? Where did you get this act of worship from? That's what Allah is asking. Where did this come from? Which shaykh gave you this? Is he your partner besides Allah? Did he make this part of the deen? Was the reality this deen belongs to who? The deen belongs to Allah. It's not our deen to come within. This is what you must do. Do this in Rabiul Awwal 5,000 times. Man, you know, how can, are you doing shuraka? Are you doing shara'u lahum min ad-deen? You understand? This is the reality of bid'ah. The reality of bid'ah is that you're insulting Allah and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To say that, yeah, it's your deen, but we will also put into the deen our input. You understand? So this ayah again, with the two ahadith we mentioned, is a clear proof with the qa'idah, with the principle that all worship is not allowed until it is proven to be allowed. Okay? As for the other principle which says that al-aslu fil ashya ribaha, everything is permissible. Everything besides worship. Everything besides worship is permissible for you until it is proven to be haram. Dalil. Proof from the Quran or Sunnah. Ya Allah, should base. Clap. Perhaps Ahmad Musari. Surah Baqarah, هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. He, Allah, is the one who created for you that everything which is on this earth. خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. Everything that's in this dunya is created for you. Which means everything is halal for you. To eat, sleep, what clothing can I wear, what haircuts can I cut. Everything is halal until it's proven to be haram. So any haircut is halal until now you see nahan an al-qaza'. Prophet said qaza' is haram, which means to shave a part and to leave a part. So we know that is haram. But what about something else? What about number 2 on the side, number 4 on the top? There's no dalil to say that's haram. What is qaza'? Qaza' means to shave the side and to leave the top. So if I go short on the sides, long on the top, for you to tell me it is haram, you need to provide me with dalil. Because everything is halal until it is proven to be haram. The food you eat, everything is halal except that which Allah and the Prophet ﷺ said is haram. Except those certain ingredients, those certain things which are not slaughtered in the pot, etc., etc. Those are haram, everything else is halal. So the question shouldn't be, is it halal? Okay, yes, in our time, because we have kuffar and this and that, but what makes it haram? That's the question you need to ask. Sometimes there's no halal chafi, but you can go check the ingredients. There's no meat in there. So it's ice cream, there's nothing in it that makes it haram. So even though there's no halal stamp, it's halal. You understand? It's halal. So there's no alcohol in the ice cream, there's none of these things, it's halal, eat it. It doesn't have to have a stamp on it to say the thing is halal. Because everything is halal until it's proven to be haram, besides your acts of worship. Do you understand these two principles? These two principles are of utmost importance, wallahi. If you understand them, then you have understood a great deal. A great deal. And like I said, I've seen big people, man, make errors in these qawaid, in these principles, right? And, tayyib. Right, so there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he saw a man standing in the sun. When he asked about him, he was told that the man had made an oath not to stand and not to sit, not to seek shade and to fast. So he's going to stand there, he's not going to sit down, he's not going to look for shade, he's going to stand there and fast in the sun. Why? Because he thought this brings him closer to Allah. He thought, nah, this is spiritual upliftment. But spiritual upliftment can only come from Quran and Sunnah. Sometimes shaitan can also make you feel spiritually uplifted. Right? In fact, you know, when I taught this fiqh of salah, Ibn Uthaymi rahimahullah, the sunnah in salah we know is to stand and look at your place of prostration, right? And in tashahud to look at your finger. Right? We know that based on the hadith. So Ibn Uthaymi was asked, what about closing the eyes in salah? So someone said, no, but I close my eyes because I feel more khushu'. He says, that's from shaitan. Why? How can you get more khushu' going against the sunnah? The sunnah is the best. وَخَيْرُ الْهَدِي هَدِي Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? So if you're feeling there's more khushu' in this, but it's not from the sunnah, going against the sunnah, then that's from shaitan. This was Ibn Uthaymi's words. Right? So we see that the barakah is when following the sunnah, and not what maybe makes you feel uplifted. Right? So we see gharib things today, funny acts of worship, spinning and jumping, and right? These things have no basis in the deen. Secondly, if you feel spiritually uplifted, that is not a proof that this thing is legitimate. Because the reality is, when a Christian goes to church and makes tawbah to the priest, he also feels, alhamdulillah, you know, I'm clean now. You know, I killed someone, but I told the priest I'm fine. That's spiritual upliftment for him. Right? When the Hindu worships the dung of a cow, he also feels spiritually uplifted. That's not a dalil. That spiritual upliftment is not a proof in the Sharia. Proof comes from what? قال الله وقال الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم وقال الصحابي على قول الصحيح. Right? Sahabi can also be used as a dalil according to the usuliyin, some of the usuliyin, right? But So understand that just because you feel a little uplifted, this is not a proof that this thing is accepted or legitimate. So what did the Prophet ﷺ tell this man? He ordered him to sit, seek shade, and told him to complete his fast. Basically telling him, there's no benefit in you standing there. There's no benefit in you to be in the sun. Right? Even though you feel better, but that's not the way. Meaning that's not the sunnah, that's not the correct way. You leave that and you follow that which is established and that which is correct. طيب. How's the time, Nidula? 10 minutes. Right, so some scholars have gone into more detail with regards to bid'ah. So they say that your act of worship must be, or it must be in accordance with the Sharia in respect to its cause, type, amount, manner, time and place. Its cause or reason, type, amount, manner, time and place. Right? So for example, with regards to its reason, right? The reason of this act of worship must be in accordance with the Sunnah. So what's the reason we are? To seek knowledge. Is that legitimate? It's legitimate, right? The reason they gather for the Mawlid is what? Celebrate the birth of Prophet ﷺ. So then they say, but all we do in the Mawlid is read Quran, have a bayan, and do salawat. It's all legitimate acts of worship. But the cause for that gathering was the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, which means it is also an innovation. So the reason you gathered on the Isra and Mi'raj, the Rajab, 20th Rajab, the reason you gathered there was to celebrate that night. This is not established in the Sharia, so therefore automatically, besides what you're doing there, besides that it's already an innovation. Right? And this was also posed to Ibn al-Hajj al-Maliki, a famous old scholar from the Maliki madhab, and he addressed the issue of people who made this claim that we only do that which is legitimate in the gathering. So he said if there was goodness in it, it would have been preceded by the Sahaba. They would have also come together and remembered Allah in this way. But in reality, they didn't ever do that. Right? So ittabi'u wa la tabtadi'u fa innakum qad kufitum. Right? And so you see, the issue is when you claim something is good, mustahab, that it is jaiz, then that is now where you need dalil. That is where the proof, the onus of proof is now upon you to say that this gathering is something which is allowed. Sahaba gathered like this, but and again this is where the other argument of good bid'ah will come in. So you asked about good bid'ah. I'll give you 3 instances. Abdullah bin Umar, right? Abdullah bin Umar was of the most learned of Sahaba. He was of the most severe in following the Sunnah. What did he say? كُلَّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ وَإِنْ رَآهَا النَّاسُ حَسَنًا. Every bid'ah is a dalala, it's a misguidance, even if the people see it as something good. Whose words? Abdullah ibn Umar. Even if bid'ah is dalala, even if people say it's good. The second one would be the statement of Malik. Imam Malik rahimahullah said, من ابتدع بدعة يراها حسنة فقد زعم أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قد خان الرسالة لأن الله تعالى يقول اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم إلى آخر الآية. Right? Imam Malik rahimahullah says, whoever does an act of innovation and he من ابتدع بدعة يراها حسنة, he views that bid'ah to be something good. We do an innovation, but now it's something good. He has made a claim against the Prophet ﷺ that he betrayed his message. By you saying that, you have accused the Prophet ﷺ of betraying his message, meaning that you didn't fulfill his message. You understand what Malik is saying? And then he substantiates his statement. He provides his dalil, which is al-yawma akmaltu lakum. So that ayah was used by Malik to refute good bid'ah. Do you understand that? So if you claim to follow the way of the Salaf, what is the way of the Salaf? That we understand the Quran and Sunnah the way the Salaf understood it. You with me? So how did they understand the issue of good bid'ah? Malik has addressed it. Right? How did they understand this ayah of al-yawma akmaltu lakum? Malik addressed it. He said that ayah is a refutation of good bid'ah. That's basically what he has told us. Right? And the third instance would be the narration of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And he was Sahabi. Is it Amr ibn al-As? Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. Right? Hadith comes in Sunnah al-Darimi with a Hasan isnad. Right? What happened? Prophet ﷺ passed away. Sahaba were alive. People came to Masjid al-Nabawi, sitting in circles. One man throws a stone, they all say Allahu Akbar. He throws a stone, says Alhamdulillah, everyone says Alhamdulillah. Another one says Subhanallah, they all say Subhanallah. what are they doing? Is it legitimate dhikr? Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, what they were saying was completely fine. Right? Now this again comes down to the cause of gathering and the manner in which they done the worship in. So dhikr must be done in a legitimate manner as well. So what happened? Abu Musa al-Ash'ari saw this. He said, what is going on here? He went to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Why him? He's more learned. He went to tell him, did you see what the people's doing in the masjid? He said, no, what they're doing, and he described it. He said to him, did you rebuke them? He said, no, I'm waiting for you to come. So they went to Masjid al-Nabawi. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud says to them, like, what are you doing? And they said, yeah, we're just here to remember Allah, to attain the pleasure of Allah. Right? And he says to them, the Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ has just passed away. His Sahaba, his companions. So from this we learn that there weren't Sahaba that was doing it. Right? He said his Sahaba is alive. His clothes are still being worn. Many people are still wearing his cloaks and this and that. Right? But you people already left the Sunnah. Right? That's why he just passed away, Sahaba's alive, all this. You people already left the Sunnah. So they said to him, Ya Aba Abdul Rahman, O the father Abdul Rahman, we just here to, what's the wording? We just here to attain the pleasure of Allah. Our intention was good basically. But we here to, it's dhikr. It's dhikr. So he says, how many people have a good intention which they never ever achieve, which they never ever reach. So the intention was good, but the ittiba'u sunnah wasn't there. That second condition of your act of worship wasn't there. So he said your intention was good, but you're never going to reach your intention. Your good intention will never be reached because the means you took was incorrect. Do you understand? That's regarding Khawarij. But at the end of the hadith, the narrative of the hadith says, and we saw most of those people to be from the Khawarij. So later on when the Khawarij emerged, those people were the heads of the Khawarij. Remember, they were people of hawa, they were people of desires. They followed their desires, and this is where they ended up to be people of desires. That's how they, but look where it started. Look where it started. Dhikr. Right? And to them it was not. But Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's understanding was what? You're not following the Sunnah. And you cannot go beyond the Sunnah, basically. Right? So, this, I think this answer addresses what you asked. To me, you're coming together, you're doing things, but this was not the way of the Sunnah. Had the Sahaba seen it, they would have rebuked it. Likewise, Abdullah Mas'ud, if they could rebuke him for that, for saying Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah in a group, then what about singing the Burda? What about doing other things, man? This was not the way of the Sahaba, and it was not the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? And even the issue of group dhikr, right? That also requires dalil. To say that the group dhikr is permissible, again, we understand the texts according to the Sahaba's understanding. So we find there are texts which speaks about group dhikr, to remember Allah in a jama'ah. But if there was goodness in it, then why did the Prophet and the Sahaba not do it? Why did they not come together and do dhikr in the jama'ah? To them, dhikr in the jama'ah was this. When we come together and we learn. When we come together and we recite Quran to each other. That is dhikr in jama'ah. So to them, dhikr in jama'ah, that wording is am. Right? That wording is general. But the action specifies what's meant by that. Do we understand that? The action specifies what's meant by that. So what's meant by that is what they done. They used to study together, to learn, muhadarat, right? Durus, ilmiyah, and Quran. This was to them, this was dhikr jama'atan. To say all dhikr jama'ah is allowed is going beyond the sunnah. It's as simple as that. That's why ulama said the sunnah fi'liyah and the sunnah tarkiyah. Fi'liyah, that which they done. Sahaba and Sahaba, they did this, it's a sunnah which from the action of the Sahaba. And then the sunnah tarkiyah. Everything which they left off is also sunnah. That you also leave it off. So when you follow them in their actions, and you follow them in what they left off. I have a whole book at home like this, Sunnah Tarkiyah, speaking about all of these issues. Understand? Is it understood? Right. So we spoke about doing an act of worship. It must be in accordance with the Sharia and respect to its cause. So the reason we came together is a good reason. This act of worship, the cause for it is something good. But if the cause for coming together, the cause for your act of worship was an innovative reason like a Mawlid or Rajab or whatever, then that act of worship is mardud. As the hadith says, it is rejected. Right? It must also be in accordance with the Sharia with respect to the type of act being performed. Right? The type of act being performed. So for example, we know that dhabh, to slaughter for the sake of Allah, is an act of worship. Right? So if you were to slaughter on the day of Eid, alhamdulillah. But if you were to slaughter a horse on the day of Eid, then we say that's not allowed. Because there's nothing to substantiate that. So the type of worship also counts. Right? Then it must be with regards to the amount as well. So, for example, you know your dhuhr is 4 rak'at. The moment you pray 5, that's an innovation. Right? The moment you think, no, but it's more, I can do 6, that's an innovation. Right? Like I said, if someone tells you, Rabiul Awwal, you must do this dhikr 100,000 times. In terms of amount, no one can specify an amount of dhikr, an amount of salah that you must do, except with telling. Except if he can tell you that the Prophet ﷺ said you must do this. Or the Sahaba said you must do this, for example. But for me to come and tell you, you must read this ayah of the Quran 5 times whenever you read the surah. And you must read this dhikr 100 times. I am now making that thing a part of the deen. Because every time you come there, you must do it this many times. So I'm stipulating to you a condition which hasn't been stipulated by Allah and His Messenger. And there is a hadith which speaks about every condition which not in the Kitabillah, which not in the Sunnah of Prophet فَهُوَ بَاطِلٌ. Right? The hadith speaks about this. So no one can stipulate to you that you must do this dhikr so many times, or this salah you must do so many times, except if they give you sahih proof. Understand? So likewise, after the salah, we know subhanallah 33 times, subhanallah 33 times, Allah Akbar 33 times, or 34 times. In other narrations, the numbers vary. 10, in other narrations 25, right? So these adhkar, if you look at all the narrations, there are various numbers given. So you can act according to anyone. But the moment you come and you say, instead of 33, I'm going to do 35, or 37, or 40, and that's an innovation. Because you're now changing the sunnah. You're going beyond the sunnah. Understand? This is with regards to specific acts of worship which have been specified by the Quran or the Sunnah. Right? But if you're just remembering Allah to yourself, then your dhikr is maftuh. Right? The doors are open to you. If you want to make 100 salawat, it's fine. If you want to make 1,000, it's fine. Right? But you cannot stipulate to him and say, do 100, or do 1,000. Or you know what? When I did this dua 5 times, I found it was accepted. So you also do it. Now you're stipulating things which is not part of the deen, so that you cannot do. You do it as you please. It's open. There's no specific numbers, so you just do it. You understand? So you can say Allahu Akbar as many times in the day as you want. It's fine. But after salah, that dhikr is specific to what the Prophet ﷺ said it is. So in that case, you do it the way the sunnah is. After that, you can do as many as you please. The doors are open to you. Right? The act must be in accordance with the Sharia with respect to its manner or modality. Right? So when you perform the right type of act with the right amount and the right cause, but he does not perform it in the correct manner, it would be rejected. So for example, wudu. Right? Everything is fine about wudu except the way you're performing wudu. So instead of, for example, the tartib, you decide, I'm first going to wash my feet, then my forehead, then I'm going to wash the face, then the hands, then the mouth, then the nose. Right? You're going completely against the sunnah, and necessarily this can also be an act of innovation. Okay? Again, it must be in accordance with the Sharia with respect to its timing. Okay? With respect to its timing, like we know for salah, etc., you cannot decide, I'm going to make Jummah after Maghrib. The timing has been stipulated, you have to stick to the timing. The moment you decide, now I'm going to change it, this is now also innovation. You are now changing the deen of Allah unnecessarily, right? And there's many examples that's given. Hajj, in the time of Arafah, you want to go to Muzdalifah. Right? It's illogical, but this is what innovation is. So, no one would do it, but if you decide that it's Arafah, but I'm rather going to Muzdalifah tomorrow, the timing must be the way the Sharia stipulated. So your salah must be done in its time. Ramadan must be fasted Ramadan, not in Sha'ban. Right? Arafah, you must be there on the day of Arafah. Not before, not after. Understand? Khair. And then with regards to your worldly transactions and dealings, right? So we said that the general ruling is that it is all permissible until it is proven to be haram, right? We explained this, and there's much more leeway in this, because now you can do things which you want to do, as long as you're not doing anything haram. Okay? So these are all fine, as long as if the Sharia lays down a specific principle or law, and then someone implements a new principle or law in place of it, that new principle or law shall be mardud. So for example, it's given here. The example here is the punishment for fornication, for zina. Right? For the married person, if he commits zina, then he must be stoned to death. As for the unmarried person, then he must be lashed. So if you come and you decide now, we're going to change this now. Right? We're going to change this now to something else, and this is basically an innovation as well. In terms of your mu'amalat, this is now an innovation. Understand? And this in fact happened in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallam, where the people committed zina, and the two parties decided that the man should pay the woman's family 100 sheep and a servant. Right? That's what your punishment is. So when they came to the Prophet sallam's attention, he then basically obviously corrected them, and he said, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِي لَأَقْضِيَنَّ بَيْنَكُمَا بِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ جَلَّ كِتَابِ اللَّهِ جَلَّ. This is a mistake here. Anyways, by the one in whose hand is my soul, I shall decide between you according to the book of Allah. 100 sheep and servant are to be returned to you. So that punishment, give it back, because that's not part of the deen. Right? So we don't want that. Rather than he says, وَعَلَى ابْنِكَ جَلْدُ مِئَةٍ وَتَغْرِيبُ عَامٍ. Your son is to be lashed 100 times and banished for 1 year. Which means he must get out of the town for a year and then he can come back. Right? And then he tells Unais, go to the woman, and if she confesses, then stone her. Right? So he basically corrected them, and it shows that your mu'amalat is fine as long as you are not changing one of the principles or laws of the Sharia, because then that is also rejected. Also, as long as your action, your mu'amalat is not haram, then it is fine. Basically, if you're not going against the Sharia, then it is acceptable. For example, a marriage contract between a woman and a man who was suckled by the same foster mother would be null and void. So we know that what's the English word? The milk brother, and that's haram to get married to each other, right? So if they were to get married, that marriage contract is mardood. Man amila amala laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa rad. It falls under that hadith, it is rejected, right? Likewise, getting married without a wali, to a woman to get married without a guardian, this is from the shurut of nikah, right? From the conditions of a nikah is that the woman is married off by her guardian, right? So if she runs away and gets married on her own, she has the shurut of nikah hasn't been fulfilled, so therefore it's also rejected. That contract there is rejected because we never fulfill the conditions of the nikah, right? There's many such examples. Right, here he gives that example. Here he says, if a person buys something from somebody without the owner's consent, such a purchase is null and void. So, if I take Dullah's phone now and I sell it to him, without him allowing it, that contract is null and void. Because he's the owner, he didn't give me permission, but I sold him the phone. That contract is null and void. So in terms of Sharia, I'm supposed to give his money back and his phone back. So you cannot say, no, but I paid. That contract is null and void. Right, in terms of the Sharia. Likewise, selling something which you don't own is also haram. So sometimes you know that I'm going to buy this thing, but before I buy it, or rather, I want to sell you this phone, right? But before I buy the phone, I already make the deal. So I first tell you, okay, you're going to buy this phone from me for 50 rand, or let's say 2,000. You say, yeah, okay. Then you give me the 2,000. Now I go to him and say, here's 1,500. I make a 500 in profit. Now I get the phone and I give you the phone. That transaction is null and void. Why? Because I sold something that's not mine. You cannot sell something that's not yours. Until you have ownership of it, then you can sell it. It's Hadeeth la tubi' ma laysa indak, right? That which is not yours, you cannot do bay of it. You cannot sell it. So these type of transactions are null and void because it goes against explicit text of the Sharia. Understand? Likewise, riba. You can do transactions, but if there's riba involved, haram. It's null and void. You with me? So that's basically relating to your a'mal. Okay? To end off other points related to this hadith, the hadith demonstrates that every deed a person performs must be in accord with the Sharia, regardless of the type of deed. If it's not consistent with the Sharia, then it is rejected. Okay, that's what we basically explained. Can be understood from this hadith that if an act is consistent with the way of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, it will be an accepted act and the person will be rewarded for it. So if this action is from the way of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, accepted. Right? Straight. an important point, the hadith also demonstrates the importance of knowledge. It demonstrates the importance of seeking knowledge. Imam as-Sindi, who was a muhaddith, used to do the shuruhat on like Ibn Majah and Nasa'i, he wrote explanations on them. He says that distinguishing between innovations from what is permissible and the Sunnah is very important and sometimes very difficult. So sometimes you won't know this is an innovation. You think it's part of the deen. But in reality, it requires good knowledge of the Quran, Sunnah consensus and what they point to. Many innovations, he states, due to ignorance are taken as Sunnah, and many Sunnah acts are considered innovations. And this is the reality of in the time that we live. Right? You do something which is according to the Sunnah, people think, well, what is this brother doing? That must be an innovation. But in reality, what they're all doing is innovation. You understand? And this is why, because knowledge has been lost. Because knowledge hasn't been studied properly from the correct sources. So the only way this can be rectified is through knowledge and study of the Quran and Sunnah. Right? So everything comes down to the end of the day is to seeking knowledge and seeking it correctly from the correct sources and from those who also sought knowledge. Right? Like we say, al-ilmu bit-talaqi. Al-ilmu bit-talaqi, as the ulama said. What does that mean? Knowledge is taken from those who take knowledge. So knowledge is something which is passed down from the Prophet to the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, from scholar to student, from scholar to student, from scholar to student. Right? This is how we're supposed to seek knowledge, and not like it's done today over internet, over YouTube, over fatwa sites and this and that. That's there to benefit you, but you still need to sit and seek knowledge. Right? Utmost importance. Whoever introduces a heretical act into Islam shall bear the weight of its sin. The act shall be rejected, and he will be responsible for all those whom he caused to follow in that heresy. Right? Wallahu musta'an. You innovate something today, you get sin for that. That's another thing. It's not just wasting of your time. It's also sin, because bid'ah is a sin. Right? A bid'ah is a sin. Okay? Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah said, it's to meet Allah with anything besides shirk. No, to meet. Basically what he said is that the worst thing you can meet Allah with is shirk and then innovations. That the worst thing you can possibly meet Allah with is shirk and then your bid'ah. This is the interpretation of his kalam. You can get the exact text again. But basically what he said was to meet Allah with anything. There's nothing worse to meet Allah with than shirk and with bid'ah. Right? So bid'ah is also a sin. So when you do an innovation, you are sinning. You with me? Yet you think you're doing a good thing, but in actual fact you are sinning. Right? And likewise with any sin, if you start a sin and people follow you in that sin, then you are the sabab. You are the reason and the cause for all of that sin. All of that sin is on your head and on your shoulders. You with me? And this is a big issue. Because if you're the one who starts the innovation of whatever, and people see, because you're doing it, they also do it, all the people's sin is upon you. Right? And this, again, it also comes down to the ulama. Right? It comes down to the ulama, and ulama must speak against it. So, like one of the salaf used to say, when the ulama keep quiet, then bid'ah will spread. When the ulama keep quiet, then bid'ah will spread. So, who's to blame there? Those ulama who keep quiet. Right? Because all that sin will also be put onto them, because they are the ones who are supposed to clarify to the people that it is something which is bad. So to summarize the hadith, an act is clearly part of the religion of Islam if it has acceptable evidence for it in the Quran, Sunnah, consensus, and what can be derived from the sources. It's part of Islam, there is dalil. Quran, Sunnah, ijma', that is your dalil. Right? If an act is inconsistent with the Quran and Sunnah, it is void and worthless. Like I said, you can sit for 10 hours and do all night dhikr. If it's not done in the way of the Prophet ﷺ with the Sahaba, it's worthless and it is void. It is mardud. The act will be rejected by Allah, it will be no reward and have no legal effect. Which means in terms of Sharia, there's no weight. There's nothing praiseworthy about it. The one who introduces such an innovation and the one who practices it later are equal in having their innovation rejected. So whether you came in the 5th century, 4th century, you started it, you're doing it today, it's the same. Right? Because the Sharia doesn't change, the deen doesn't change. What was right that time will be right today. What was haram that time, what was bid'ah that time, is bid'ah and haram today. Understand? And that is basically our explanation of the hadith. Last point to end off with, sometimes also, like I said, you think this brings you spiritual upliftment, also people have the tendency to want to do more. So when they think, no, but this is more, man. It's more dhikr, it's more. The important point is that you're following the sunnah and not that you're increasing too much. Right? تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت, the one who created death والحياة and life ليبلوكم, so that he can test you أيكم أحسن عملا, to see which of you are أحسن عملا, which of you are best in your deeds. Right? So if you check the tafsir of this ayah, you will see it doesn't say أكثر عملا. It doesn't say we want to see who of you does the most deeds. We want to see who of you are best in your deed. Check what Fudail ibn Iyad rahimahullah said about the ayah. He says أحسن عملا means that it is done in accordance with rather it's done sincerely for the sake of Allah, and that it is aswab, meaning that it is done correctly. So he was asked, what do you mean by aswab, that it is done correctly? He said that it is done in accordance with the sunnah. So what's meant by that is the two conditions which we went earlier, ikhlas and al-mutaba'ah, sincerely for the sake of Allah, and it is done in accordance with the sunnah of the Prophet sallam. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Questions we can.
Just on that last point that you made about doing most, was it Sufyan al-Thawri, the incident where between the al-Fajr and the
Sa'id ibn
Fajr.
al-Musayyib. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib was from the most learned of the Tabi'een. He himself says about himself that he knows no one that knows more of the Quran, Sunnah and narrations of the Sahaba than him. He knows no one who knows more than himself. So he was known to be the most knowledgeable of the Tabi'een. Right? He studied under Abdullah bin Umar and others. So he saw a man making 2 rak'ats of salah over and over. Right? Between the adhan of Fajr and the iqamah of Fajr and the adhan and iqamah of Fajr. Right? He saw a man making 2 rak'ats, gets up, makes another 2, gets up, makes another 2, gets up, makes another 2. But what's the sunnah? To make 2 rak'ats, right? So he goes to the man and says, like, what are you doing? Is this part, is this allowed? So the man tells him, am I going to get punished for making salah? Right? This is the same answer we'll find today. Am I going to get punished for making dhikr? Am I going to get punished for doing this? So the man asks him simple thing, am I going to get punished for making salah? So Sa'id ibn Musayyib, he says to him, no, you won't get punished for making salah, but you'll get punished for going against the sunnah. So again we learn how strict the salaf were, how strict the tabi'in were in sticking to the sunnah and not going beyond the sunnah. You can't outdo the sunnah. You can never do better than the sunnah. No matter how much you increase, the moment you go beyond the sunnah, you have gone too far. Because, and that's what Hudayfa, the Sahabi, who said, you stop where the companions stopped. You don't do what they didn't do, basically. There's hundreds of sayings that you can bring to substantiate this from the Sahaba and Tabi'in, etc. But in the Al-Amr Wadih, 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 الأمر واضح الأمر واضح